Hey, what's up everybody? This is Jordan from PictureMonk.com and welcome to episode 59 of the PictureMonk Photography Podcast. Sorry I was out last week. Just a bunch of stuff going on. I got some couple things in the works that are going to be happening involving the YouTube channel and maybe even the podcast. I'm not sure. But I wanted to go ahead and get those knocked out, and that kind of needed a little bit more of my time. So I'm back this week, and this week is going to be, if you have noticed by the title, is going to be a little bit about portrait photography. I haven't really covered much portrait photography lately, so I wanted to go ahead and do that, and I thought it would be kind of a cool one to do when, to kind of break it up, and instead of talking about real estate all the time or landscape all the time, throw in some portrait stuff for you guys and see if I can help you out with some of that stuff. One thing you will notice that I am not doing a video podcast, kind of like I was just saying, where I had a whole bunch of stuff going on. I had to kind of cut it short on setting up all the video stuff to try to get a good video podcast. So I'm just sticking with the audio this week. So if you're watching on YouTube, feel free to go ahead and just close down your screen and still listen to the podcast, but just close down your screen because there's not going to be anything to see. So for you audio listeners, which is 99.9% of you guys aren't going to be affected obviously by this. But so this week, like I said, I'm going to talk about portrait photography, and I have the listener question of the week and the news articles. So let's go ahead and jump into the news articles. The first one is going to be actually a really, really awesome video. It is from photographer Jimmy Chin, and Petapixel put out an article about this where I believe it was the New York Times wanted him to go to the top of the World Trade Center in New York and climb the spire of the building and get a couple cool photos and stuff like that, which I would do in a heartbeat. I don't care if it's almost 1,000 feet in the air. I would do that in a heartbeat. That would be one of the most amazing experiences. But what he did that was really cool was do a 360 video. So if you have the iPhone app, if you have the YouTube iPhone app on your phone, or if you have an Android device, I believe that's how it works. You can move your phone around and you can see what he's seeing at all times, kind of like you're there. So that's a really cool thing. I really suggest you guys check that out. As always, the URL for the show notes for this episode, you might have guessed it, picturemonk.com/PMP059, and you will see a link to the video there where you can check that out. And just it's a really cool video. I think I watched it twice, and I might watch it one more time because you kind of miss things because you can tilt your phone in many different ways and see different things. So really cool video. The other thing that I want to talk about is a cool article where I'm basically just going to read you the title of the article because I want you guys to go read it yourself. And this is for all you gearheads out there. The title of the article is called My Camera Gear Sucks. So that's all I'm going to say. I read the article, and it's a really, really good one. It makes you kind of think a little bit, and kind of harps on what I've been harping on for a very long time. So go ahead and check that out. Again, it's called My Camera Gear Sucks, and I'll have a link to that as well. And so let's get into the listener question of the week. This one is from an Ashley M. from Australia. And Ashley writes, what do you do when a client doesn't want to pay for your photography services? I had a recent client say that I was charging too much for standard portraits, and her husband said they would use somebody else, even though they really like my work. If it was me, I would just say good luck, just because this sort of thing, not exactly the same, but this sort of thing happened to me recently, where I had to photograph a building. I put out a video of me photographing a real estate building, and what the person contacted me did was get a couple bids from photographers in this area and ask for availability and pricing and stuff like that. So I sent in my pricing for the items that she detailed that she wanted. And, sent in my pricing, the times I could go out there, and she wrote back and eventually said that they were going to go with somebody else. Didn't know if it was because of my pricing or I wasn't able to go out there when they wanted me to, even though I said I could be out there tomorrow. So I didn't know what I did wrong. I was assuming it was the pricing, but I wasn't sure. And so come to think about it, a little bit later, about a week later, I guess, they contacted me again and say, hey, when's the next time you can get out there? We kind of changed direction, so we want to go with you now. When's the next time you can get out there? And so in the video on the YouTube channel, it's one of the on location videos. If you go check that out on the YouTube channel, you can see how I said I wanted to kind of under promise and over deliver with them, so they could possibly use me again in the future. So what I would say, Ashley, is just this is probably not going to be the first one. I don't know if you're starting out doing this or not, but this is not going to be the first time that you get dropped for somebody who doesn't like your pricing on your work. You pay for what you think you're worth, and that's really kind of what it comes down to. So that kind of ties in with the theme this year. Wow, I am very tired. It is this ties in for the theme this episode. There we go. So let's go ahead and get into the theme this episode. And this one's obviously for better portrait photography. A lot of this is going to be kind of run and gun style photography because I'm not a big fan of stage stuff or posing and all that kind of stuff. That's not kind of stuff I do. If I do portrait photography, that's not the kind of stuff I do. It's more of a like I said, run and gun, get out there and capture some stuff of people doing what they love to do, and not telling them to put their left hand 2 inches above their hip or whatever, anything like that. So I got about 13 of these, so I don't know how fast or slow these are going to go, but we'll see what we can do. All right, the first one is photographing the subject in their native environment. These are really great for kids, obviously, for if you're doing like a company portrait, which is a couple of the portraits that I did for the company that I work for. They wanted to bring in a background and do those cheesy wall splotched backgrounds with 7 lights all pointed at their face and doing all this stuff. And so I told them that I wouldn't mind doing just environmental portraits. They still can be lit very well, but they can just have the background of the office in there blurred out with a lot of bokeh, so you can kind of tell that you're in the office, but you can kind of not. And so went with that route. They loved it, and I think there was about 13 to 14 people that were photographed in that kind of style, different places around the office, and it really works well. It's kind of like a fresher, modern feel to the standard company portrait. So yeah, that's kind of what I like to do, just photographing the natural environment. When I was talking about kids, photographing them in their room and playing with their toys, so you can still see stuff. This is kind of like a documentary thing, photographing their stuff in their background, which is kind of like what I like to do when I'm taking pictures of my son. I like to take pictures in his room sometimes, most of the time, because not only does that help remember when he was, this young, but it also shows the surrounding of how his room was when he was this young. And then later on, obviously, his bed will get bigger, toys will get different, that kind of thing. And so it's kind of a memory thing. That's kind of how I think about it. So photographing in your natural environment is definitely the way to go that I think. But yeah, if you got to do those cheesy portraits, you got to do them. So, but I just thought that was a good tip to start this out. The next one is get on their level or a little bit above. So this is definitely, again, a kid thing, where if you're super, super tall like me, that's a joke because I'm only like 5'6". If you're super tall like me and you're taking pictures of someone looking down on them, it's not going to be a flattering photo. Most of the time, it won't be a flattering photo, and that's considered kind of sort of like a snapshot in a way, because that's what normal people would do. They would stand, 5 feet above the person or 3 feet above the person, take a shot down, and then that's considered a snapshot. So what I like to do is get on their level. Like if I've taken a picture of my son, most of the time I'll kind of I'll actually balance the camera on the ground and level it that way, and shoot a tiny bit up to him, and so it looks like he's not big, but he's eye level with me, so he's not straining to look up, and it just kind of makes for a better flattering photo. And it's a different angle that not a lot of people do. They don't take the time to do that. And when I said a little bit above, if you're taking pictures of a regular, an adult or a teen or something like that, it doesn't actually hurt to have like a small step stool with you. And what that'll do is when you step on that step stool and take a picture slightly down at a person, it can hide some imperfections. You don't have to be looking up their nostrils. A little part where their eyes can kind of look up at you, that can kind of create a different mood, that sort of thing. So that's one little tip there. The next one is spot metering is definitely going to be your friend. If you're not the type of person who kind of likes to mess with the manual exposures on your camera, slipping it to the M dial and choosing an aperture and shutter speed and constantly changing that. If you're not that kind of person, and you just want to pop it into like aperture priority mode or something like that, spot metering can definitely be your friend there. It can, what spot metering does is spot metering will only meter, the camera will only choose the correct exposure for that single spot, that single dot on the camera. So when you point it at something, it's going to make sure that the thing in the middle where you're pointing it is perfectly exposed. Nothing else will be, it's not going to care about anything else about the surrounding area. But that one spot will be perfectly exposed. And so that's great for people's faces, especially if there's going to be, shadows and stuff like that. It'll kind of even all that out a little bit, and it'll expose their face perfectly. So that's a really good option to choose from if you're not kind of a manual exposure person. That's kind of an easy way to cheat the system, if you will. So number 4. Know when to underexpose and when to overexpose. So this is for the people who do like to shoot in manual mode, and kind of what I'm talking about there is a lot of people do like to overexpose the images. I would rather overexpose than underexpose. So overexposing, obviously means you're letting in more light than necessary, and so the picture will ultimately be brighter, and the opposite is true for underexposing. But what a lot of people don't know is if you're letting the camera choose how to meter the scene, even something as common as clothing could actually influence the camera. So if the subject you're pointing the camera at is wearing dark clothing, that's gonna be affected by how the camera reads the scene. So if you're shooting something and the subject is wearing dark clothing, maybe you need to bump a little bit of exposure compensation up, maybe like not at one stop, but a third of a stop or so, just to kind of help balance that out. The same is true for people who are wearing bright white stuff. Most of the time, it's going to probably come out dull and gray before you post process it. And that's because it's trying to calm down all the white that's going on. So that's kind of something to think about, if you're going out there and letting the camera do it for you. Tip number 5 is flipping the camera. So what this does, or what I mean by this, is I probably take most of my shots in landscape orientation on my camera. So that's the camera flat. I never really turn it portrait, and that's something that I need to work on, because what a lot of people like to do is find the right composition for what you're taking and take it in landscape orientation, so horizontal, and then right after that flip it to vertical and do a portrait orientated photo and choose kind of like a different composition. And so that's really kind of cool to do with every photo you shoot. If you can. Obviously, if you're running and gunning it, you don't have time to do the same subject like that every time. But that's something to think about. You might want to. The times that I have done it, I'm kind of glad I switched it to portrait orientation, because I got a better scene overall. And so that was really helpful for me to kind of think about over and over again. Number 6 and kind of number 7 in a way are kind of similar here. Number 6 is cloudy days are perfect for portrait photography. It's kind of like a big softbox. I'm pretty sure a lot of people have heard that before, but it basically creates a big softbox in the sky. And so even lighting is all over the place. So you definitely get a really good low contrast photo that gives you more ability to post process and give better control of your images when post processing. But number 7, side lighting on bright days is kind of recommended based on what you're shooting. So, if you want to have your subject lit up from the front, obviously you have them facing the sun. That's not always the best thing because they want to squint and their eyes are going to be all shut and faces, scrunched up and everything. It's not a cute photo. And you don't want their back to you, or you'll have to pop a flash in their face and try to light them up because they're going to be silhouetted. So side lighting, having them, side lit by the sun is probably one of the better options to do. And one of the things that you kind of got to learn about with side lighting, and just kind of cautiously here, is to know that side lighting will give you even more contrast in your photos when it comes to textures. So kind of what I mean by that is, I don't know if many of you guys, I kind of did this in a brick room or a brick walled room, but if you were to shut off all the lights in the room, take a flashlight and hold it straight at the wall, like a brick wall that has a whole bunch of texture on it. Take a flashlight, hold it right at the wall. You're not going to see that much contrast. You're going to see just an even lit all the way across. But if you slowly turn that light to side lighting, still pointing at the wall, then you're going to start to see all the dots and the imperfections in the brick. And it's the same thing with skin. You're going to see, so if you're photographing an older person, the side lighting is going to bring out more of the wrinkles in their skin and items like that. So one thing you got to look at too, depending on your subject. But a lot of people kind of don't think about that, and it's just something that that kind of sticks with me if I'm trying to do that. So the next one is front lighting versus side lighting. That's kind of just what I talked about. So let's go and get into number 9 here. 9 is paying attention to your background. There's nothing I hate more, and this is even when doing landscape photography. There's nothing I hate more than focusing on this one part of the photo that I think is going to be amazing. I get everything all set up, take the photo, and then realize there's like a light pole in the background. And then I got to go, oh crap, now I got to go back to the computer, clone it out and do all this kind of stuff. So it's the same way with people. Pay attention to your background. If you're photographing your kids running around and play like a soccer game or something like that, you don't want to snap a photo of them and then have some person's weird dad standing in the background coming out of the top of their head. It's not a good photo. So kind of pay attention to your background. Use angles and levels to get rid of things that you can't control. So like the weird dad, either you can move to the side and get him out of the way, or if you really wanted to, you can get down on the ground and just have your son or your daughter's head blocking the dad, that kind of thing. So that's, use levels and move around a little bit. Don't be a flat-footed, heavy-footed photographer that doesn't move. So number 10 is good lighting knowledge beats natural light sometimes. So good lighting knowledge, knowing how to use just a simple one flash, even on-camera flash, not the pop-up flash, but a hot shoe flash, external flash. Even knowing how to set the brightness, the power, the zoom on that, even that will greatly improve your photography, because it's natural light can only take you so far, I think. Even though I do like natural light, number 1, because it's easy, and number 2, because I don't have to worry about digging in my bag, finding a flash, going, oh geez, stupid batteries are dead and all this kind of stuff. I don't have to worry about any of that. It's available for me. But if you are prepared to use external flash, you're going to be able to create way more amazing images than natural light could probably give you. So even if using a small reflector, even that, you can bend the light and move it to highlight certain things and make certain things brighter or darker or whatever. It's just a cool thing to do. So I really feel that natural light is cool, but if you got a good lighting knowledge, you're going to be able to definitely create really cool killer photos. So the next one is try to stay away from global sharpening. And what I mean by that is I'm guilty of it too. A lot of times I'll take a photo into Lightroom or Photoshop, and when I want to go sharpen the photo, I just slide the sharpening slider all the way to kind of what my normal value is, between 75 to 100 or 85, somewhere around there, depending on the scene. And then I'll just slide it and be done with it. And that's called global sharpening because it's sharpening everything in the photo. Every pixel pretty much is getting sharpened. Every edge is getting sharpened. But for portraits, that's not exactly the best move because you're sharpening everything in the person's face and the arms and the legs and whatever. So using masking is sort of the thing that really is just key when you want to get sharp photos, but also not create a whole bunch of texture. And so what you're doing there is sliding the sharpening slider all the way, kind of, again, 85, 100, somewhere around there, and then sliding the masking slider right under that to mask out certain things. The farther you slide it over to the right, the more edges it's going to do. So the more edging it's going to, the less global it gets, basically. And so that's a really, really key thing to think about when post-processing your portraits. Second to the last one here we got is use the right focusing mode. Depending on your subject, again, this is kind of a this or that sort of thing, but depending on your subject, using the right focusing mode is really going to make you have a lot more keepers, getting them all in focus. So if you're shooting something that's fast moving, again, like kids, doing the continuous focus, or I think that's what it's called on Nikon. I think on Canon it's AI servo or AI, something like that. Doing the continuous focusing mode will obviously do what it says it's supposed to do. It's supposed to continually focus every time something's being moved. So it's constantly focused. Your lens is constantly moving and getting everything in focus. 99% of my stuff is shot on single shot. So that's basically, I focus on something, holding the shutter button in halfway, it focuses, and then I click it all the way down, and it takes the photo. So if whatever I'm taking a photo of moves, then it's going to be out of focus. But for my work, most of the time I don't have to worry about that. But if I'm shooting something that's continually moving, either I got to be really, really quick with a single shot, or I need to put on an AI servo or continuous and let it do the focusing for me to make sure my subject is super sharp. And then the last one is, you guys have heard this all the time, and again, it's probably the most well-known photography adage out there, and it's the best camera is the one you got with you. That's the thing, man. I love my DSLR. I can't see me getting rid of it because it does all I need it to do. But every year, these dang phones, they get better and better. And, sometimes, if I'm taking pictures of my son for Instagram or something like that, or, even just like today, we took my son out to the pool the first time to get ready for the beach trip that's coming up. And so, we took him out to the pool, and my wife said, "Do you have your camera?" And I was like, "Yeah, I got it." And I was just going to take my phone. I'm not going to wield my big DSLR out there. And the shots turned out fine because I was, using some of the techniques in here. I was getting different levels. I was making sure that, he was exposed correctly, zooming in, zooming out, filling the frame, stuff like that. It was stuff like that made the photo, not because of the camera I was using. It was me doing the work to make sure that he had a good photo of him and my wife together. So I really do believe that you can buy all the gear in the world and still be a crappy photographer. So, but yeah, I thought that was good. So that's kind of the 13. Really, it's the 12, but it's the 13 techniques to help you get a little bit better portrait photography. Again, none of these are in depth because I don't really get into all the super, super in-depth stuff. I'm more of I'd rather spend a whole bunch of time testing out and playing and do all this kind of stuff than reading about which focusing mode to use for the 12th hour of the day or some crazy weird stuff. I was reading another blog about photography, and they get way too into it. So it kind of just blows my mind. It makes me realize how dumb I am. But that was a little bit of a rant. But let's go ahead and get into the widget of the week, and then we'll get out of here. So the widget of the week this week is the Instagrids app on the iPhone and Android. I'm pretty sure you guys have seen this kind of thing where if you go on Instagram and you see somebody uploading a bunch of photos all at once, like 6 photos, and they're little segments of a photo. It looks kind of cool when you have like a skyline. I guess that's the only kind of time it does really look cool. Is a skyline photo. So you see like different buildings, and then when you look at their profile under their Instagram feed, then you see all the photos put together, and it makes one big photo. And so I thought that was really cool, and I was trying to find the filter that actually, or the app that actually did that. Finally found it, and it's the Instagrids. I wouldn't recommend it doing on people because you can do a segment of the photo, and somebody's eye might be in one, and then it'd be in the other, and it just look all weird. But it's still a kind of a cool, kind of app to play around with. But it is available on the iPhone and also on Android. So for all you Android folks out there, it's still there for you. I'll have links to both of the app stores, I guess, on the show notes, picturemonk.com/PMP059. So you can download that there. And that's about it. That was this week's show, y'all. I am, by the time you guys are listening to this, I will be in the Outer Banks with my family for my son's first birthday. And so we will be out there, and I'm going to try to do a bunch of podcasts with my folks. Going to try to get a bunch of video and kind of make it a fun family trip / sort of business trip. I don't know. It's going to be fun either way. So hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode. Hope it wasn't too rambly, but even if it was, what can you do? So thanks for joining me this week, guys. Love your faces. And don't forget to join the PictureMonk Nation Facebook page that's going on right now. We're sharing a lot of photos and talking back and forth, and it's really kind of fun just to do that. So yeah, go to picturemonk.com/nation, and that'll redirect you to Facebook, or you can just go to Facebook in the search bar and type in PictureMonk Nation, and it'll show up there. So thanks, guys, for joining me in this week's episode of the podcast, and I will catch you in the next one.